Hey everybody, Jake here from Bearded Gear, and as the daylight is fading, I gotta knock out my full review of this guy. Finally back outdoors, and I am in the canyon that I love to be in, and it is not burnt down. So the fires were all kind of up above this ridge, which is great. I'll probably be doing some exploring up there over the next couple of weeks once they open the roads up there again. Anyways, this review is long overdue. Typically, I try to knock out my reviews about a week from when I get a knife, but because of the fires and me wanting to do this one outdoors, it just felt right for this knife. I've just been waiting until I've been able to get out here again. But this is the Demko AD-20 MG. MG stands for machine ground. There are two variants of this knife currently in existence, kind of. There's some minutia there, but two main subsects of this knife. So there's the MG, machine ground version of this knife, still made by the Demko brothers in the Demko shop. Some would consider it a custom, some would consider it a semi-custom or a mid-tech. It's done by machine, but specifically by them there and hand-assembled and all that. The other variant of the knife is the Demko AD-20. I don't know what would it be HG? I don't know if there's letters after that one, to be honest, but it's the hand ground one, the ones that they grind by hand. This one is a flat grind. The hand ground ones get a hollow grind. The difference in cost between them is significant. This one was $425 plus tax. The hand ground one, I believe, is about $400 more. Not positive, so don't necessarily quote me on that, but if I remember correctly. It is, at the very least, safe to say it is substantially more expensive. And to me, I'm fine with having this knife flat ground just the way it is. I love this knife. If you've watched my top 10 knives in my collection video, you'll have seen that this knife ended up number 2. That surprised me. When I picked this knife up, I had seen a lot of people raving about it. I knew that it was going to be good because people I respect had already said it was very good. But this knife isn't my typical style. This isn't my typical speed on knives. This is a little more tactical, a little more overbuilt than I typically go after. And oftentimes when I try out knives that are kind of more in this range, I think they're fun and they're cool, but I don't actually love carrying them and keeping them long term. Like the fun kind of wears off. This one, I just can't stop putting it in my pocket. I love carrying it. I love fidgeting with it. I love using it. It is fantastic. So let's talk about the reasons why I love this knife so much. First, let's go over materials, then we'll go over experience in typical Bearded Gear fashion. So materials-wise, this is offered in 2 blade steels. You can get it in either CPM 20CV, or like this one, you can get it in CPM 3V. 3V is a fantastic steel in my opinion, and its focus is on toughness. This is a tough knife. I think it deserves the toughest steel available, and that's the way it's set up here. So I love the steel. This one is in Grey G10. There are a bunch of colors of G10, and there's also a titanium variant. I've started to see, like today I saw one pop up in smooth titanium. Usually it's the same texture as this. I've got a buddy, Ashton, who got one in Jade G10. I don't know if he had to work with them specifically to get it straight from them or what, but it was not textured like this, and I think it was more rounded. So there's options on these, but bunch of G10 colors at the very least, and there's also a titanium variant. You can also get these without the slot in the blade. I, being Mr. Holes Are Greater Than Studs himself, of course, got the one with the hole in it, because I happen to like to spidey flick my knives. That's my favorite way to deploy a knife, so I love that this one has the slot. But if you're somebody who just plans on using the thumb studs and doesn't want a hole in your blade, they can do that for you as well. So, G10, 3V, the lock mechanism, I believe, I still should have looked this up, shouldn't I have? I believe it's titanium. I'm 90% certain that this lock component is titanium. It has a spring in there, that's one coil spring, and then there are some minimal internal liners that extend back to this screw, but just for like a little strip of the knife here, and then they come up to go around the pivot mechanism and all of that. So this knife runs on bearings, and it is ultra smooth, and it is so good. So let's talk ergos. Ergonomically, love it. This knife is a little bit thicker than most knives that I'm typically into. If you look at the actual thickness of the handles, I'm not a specs guy, I'm sure you can look it up, but these are a little thicker than my average knife, for sure. But the way that the edges are rounded just enough to make them comfortable, the way that the G10 is just gritty enough to really feel kind of true to the nature of this knife without being a pocket shredder. Like the cold steel version of the Demko AD-20 I have experience with, and it had a similar pattern on the G10, but way more aggressive. Too aggressive. This is done well. I like the level of texture that's put on here. So ergonomically, the way that this handle is shaped, you've got kind of a, primary finger groove up here, and then you've got this kind of rounded kind of bulge back here, the swell at the back to keep you from slipping off. Stay focused on the knife. And then you of course have this kind of guard up here, which also has a spot that you can choke up. So typical grip that I grab onto this knife in hammer grip right here, or a saber grip kind of aggressively. I can use the lock itself. It's got jimping and kind of a ramp right here. It's very fine jimping. It feels good, frankly. And I can get a nice saber grip there, or I can choke up, go onto this jimping on the spine, or I can choke up even further by using that forward spot, and I can come all the way up here, get a lot of control over the blade. Any way that I hold this knife, it's comfortable for me. I like it quite a bit. Reverse grip is fantastic. Feels very good in reverse grip. Reverse grip draw cut, doable. Forward grip draw cut, actually pretty good. So I like this knife in all those grips. Let's talk about how it carries. So this knife is thick. We already talked about that. It's on the heavy end for knives that I carry. I believe it's a little over 6 ounces, somewhere right around there. A lot of that is due to this super thick 3V blade on here. But it actually carries well for its size and weight. Like, it doesn't carry like a bug out, not at all. But I haven't minded having this knife in pocket. Something about the way it carries I just really dig. And I'm Mr. like deep carry clip as well. I think it would be fun to try a deep carry clip on here if that becomes a possibility at some point. But I really like the orientation of this clip, the way that it sits in pocket, the way that it draws out of pocket, the way it slides into pocket. It's just all very, very nice. I'm liking it quite a bit. So I like the way that it carries for its size. Again, not an ultra lightweight, ultra slim knife. Don't expect it to be, but for its size, of any knife that I've carried around this size, like say my ZT308 is similar, but kind of in this ballpark. This carries, in my opinion, a lot better than the 308, and I don't know quite what it is about it, because the 308 carries fairly well, but I don't know. Maybe it's just how much I love this knife. It makes me enjoy, like, I can tell it's there, and I know it's the Demko. I don't know if that sounds weird. Anyways, let's talk about action. So there's a couple of methods of deployment here. We have, of course, the thumb studs. So very easy, reliable. They work excellent. We have the hole. Very easy, reliable, works excellent. We also have the lock itself. So I've seen some people, when they get this knife, they try to like use that as a flipper tab. It doesn't work like that. You can see it kind of moves the blade a little bit, but you just kind of swing it when you're engaging the lock, and that works as well. So 3 main methods of deployment. I guess you can kind of get funky and start doing like weird reverse stuff and using different fingers, but the holes, the studs, or this. Because it rides on bearings, I'm starting to get flies again. Thought I was safe today. Anyways, because it's on bearings, it is just super smooth. Ridiculously smooth. And it's just such a breeze to play with because of this lock type and because of those bearings, because of the weight of the blade. It all comes together, and I can't stop fidgeting with this knife when it's the one I've got with me. Let's talk about cutting performance. The cutting performance of this is phenomenal for how thick this blade is. I've done everything I typically do with this knife, including some outdoor stuff now today on the way up here. I was just playing with it so I could speak a little bit from experience. I put it through some like little branches that had overgrown. I came in on a sub trail that was frankly pretty nasty, and so I was hacking through some stuff just for fun. I could have pushed it out of my way, but I had this in my pocket. It's really good. The edge that's on it is screaming. This kind of thick, outdoorsy, tactical vibe, I don't know, it shaves hair reliably. And it's just really, really a good edge, and it's not thin behind the edge at all. And I'm sure after a few sharpenings, because of this being a flat grind, once you start climbing up that edge at all, it's just going to get thicker and thicker for sure. But for being this like tactical, robust, outdoorsy beast of a knife, it's actually like right behind the edge. It's not bad. And when I've sliced through cardboard and stuff, I'm sure part of it is what a good factory edge they put on here, if you can call it factory. What a good small shop edge they've put on here. But it slices well. Again, it's not going to be a TRM Atom that's super thin. It's not the OZ Roosevelt. It's not like built for slicing, but for what it's built to do, its slicing abilities have really surprised me. I don't feel like if I have light duty tasks to do, and this is the knife that's on me, that it's going to actually be difficult to do light duty stuff. Whereas sometimes there is such a thing as too much knife. So yeah, I love how confident I am in this knife out here, while still being confident in it doing like precise little stuff. It's impressive to me. Let's talk about the lock type, because this is the Shark Lock. It is the only knife currently in existence with the Shark Lock. Demko invented this lock, and this is his first, maybe only, I don't know, knife with it. So the Shark Lock basically sits on the spine of the knife, spine of the handle, if you will, and it's this bar that slides over kind of a flat spot. And I'm not going to try overly to describe the mechanics of it because I didn't design it. But basically, in order to close the knife, you just slide this backwards, and that allows the blade to swing free. When the blade is open, it slides forward. So if you watch the lock, it just notches into place. And the lockup is, I mean, there is zero play. Side to side, front to back, nothing. It's just bank vault. It's so solid, and you can feel it when you're using this knife. Like, it just almost feels kind of like a fixed blade, which is impressive. So I don't know, a lot of people say that the Triad lock is the strongest lock that has ever been invented, and nothing could ever be stronger, and they might be right. This might finally be stronger. They both come from the same guy, and this he's developed now, whereas that he developed a while ago. So I don't know if he was trying to make a lock even stronger than the Scorpion lock, or the Scorpion lock is also his, but then the Triad lock. But the Shark Lock is my favorite of his locks, because I don't like back locks. The Triad lock is a back lock. The Scorpion lock I tried on the cold steel version of the AD-15, and it was fun, but it wasn't like this. This just feels so good to me. And maybe I need to try an actual Demko AD-15 at some point, see if that's a little bit more my speed than the cold steel version of it. It's certainly possible it will be. I did handle one for a minute a couple weeks ago, and it was nice, but I didn't get to really feel it out. So, I don't know. That's something I may want to check out. But yeah, I love the lock type. I love the ergos. I like the way it carries. I love the way it cuts. I feel so confident when this is the knife that is in my pocket. There are some knives where when you're carrying them, you just feel like you're unstoppable. There's nothing that can get in the way because it's so fantastically robust and strong and capable. And this probably feels the most like that of any knife that I've ever had. That's comfortable to carry in my pocket. Like, it really does kind of rival a fixed blade in the sense of how confident I feel in it. And I know there's a lot of people who they're going to jump in the comments of any video that's talking about lock strength of a folding knife and using it for fixed blade type of tasks, and you should just be using a fixed blade. Sure, but it's fun to have a folder that's about as capable as a fixed blade. It's just really, really cool. I don't know who wouldn't want that. And I feel like that's what you're getting here. So, a sincere tip of the hat to the Demkos, because this, it's one of my favorite knives, absolutely. Like I said, finished number 2 in my collection of knives that I currently own, full of knives that I love. This one finished number 2, only behind the Arius. And this is a very different knife from the Arius. I'll tell you, if I'm picking an outdoor folder, this is hands down my favorite. It's just really, really good. So I guess that'll be that. That's my review of the Demko Knives AD-20 with the Shark Lock in CPM 3V with Grey G10, and I freaking love this knife so much. Thanks, guys. Appreciate you watching.